are going to discuss the agricultural practices. What are the process? We discussed already that the agriculture in the sense of the process of cropping is called agriculture, right? What the process is there behind the agricultural practices to getting a good production? Here it is 10 steps, 11 steps are there. Here from the preparing soil to the storage of grains. Okay, what is preparing soil and till the storage of grains, we will discuss step by step, right? Slowly. You see this one, the preparing the soil containing the two steps here. One is a ploughing and second is a leveling. Before the farmers are used to sow any kind of seeds in the soil, they need to plough the soil. To ploughing the soil, the farmers are usually using an instrument called it's a plough, right? And usually it is in the shape of a letter T. Letter T, it is in the shape of, most probably in the villages the people can able to see that it's letter like a letter T, right? This is mostly made by the wood in the ancient times, and the bottom of the plough usually having an iron nail here. It is the iron nail, right? And this, the end can be attached with the bulls, and here the handle is there, the wooden handle. The farmer can be hold the wooden handle. Then the iron nail can be penetrate into the soil, and it can make some kinds of harrows in the soil, it seems. So this is the instrument called plough. By using this plough only, the farmers are doing the foremost agricultural practice called ploughing, right? So by doing the ploughing, what is the advantage and why farmers are doing the ploughing? Because by doing the ploughing practices, the soil can be, the lower soil can be coming outside, and the top soil can be going lower. So the mixing of soil may takes place. What happens by mixing the soil of doing this ploughing practices, right? So there's some harmful substances like some harmful bacteria, harmful fungi present inside the soil. While the farmers are doing the ploughing practices, they are coming out of the ground. So when they are coming out of the ground, automatically by sunlight they will die immediately, right? And mixing of soil also takes place, and doing the ploughing practice, the hard soil can become smooth, and whenever the soil becomes smooth, the water and sunlight air can easily penetrate into the deeper layers of the soil. So it is the advantage of the ploughing, the foremost activity of the agriculture. Later, leveling followed by the ploughing. Leveling in the sense soil in the sense of, for example, when you observe the soil, agricultural soils are not so flat, it's having some ups and downs, right? So to make the ups and downs containing soil to be flattened, they are using a kind of an instrument called leveler. To level the soil, they are using an instrument called leveler. By using the leveler, the farmers can level the soil without having any ups and downs, right? By leveling the soil, what is the advantage? The advantage of doing the leveling of soil is equal distribution of the soil, and equal distribution of the water, and equal distribution of the nutrients also takes place by doing the this kind of a second agricultural important task, the leveling. The latter, so sowing the seeds. Sowing the seeds is most important. Here it is the sowing the seeds usually doing in the two different kinds of methods. One is by manual, and second is seed drill. Okay, before the farmer need to be sow the seeds, they need to be select the seeds. Seed selection. When they are choosing the seeds, when they are selecting the seeds, only then after they can able to sow the seeds. Okay, how the farmers can able to select the good seeds, right? A simple phenomena is there here. The farmers are using, usually they are taking a bucket full of water, and they are throwing they're dumping all the seeds in the bucket full of water, and what the seeds can be dumped or sink in the bottom of the water, those can be considered as the good seeds. And the seeds which are float on the water, which is not sinking under the water, those are the light weighted seeds are separated. Those are not useful for agricultural practices or for the sowing purpose, right? So this is the simple general process of selection of seeds. The whatever the seeds the farmers are selected by using this method, they are ready to sow in the field, it seems. So when the farmers are sowing the seeds, they are sowing the seeds in the two different ways. One is the manual method, and nowadays the farmers are using some machinery to sow the seeds, nothing but seed drill. Seed drill. Why the farmers are not using nowadays the seed drills, and what is the advantage of this using seed drills? Manual in the sense of generally these farmers are holding some seeds in a particular a bucket or maybe something else, it seems, and they are sowing the seeds manually, by hand they are sowing in the field. While farmers are sowing the seeds in the field, they may not be distributed equally, right? Somewhere they may forget to sow the seeds, and somewhere they can sow more seeds. So here when the farmers are manually sowing the seeds may not be distributed equally. So that to avoid this problem, nowadays the farmers are using seed drills. By using the seed drills, what they are doing, the seeds are manually distributed in the field. So to avoid the confusion, to avoid this kind of uneven distribution of seeds in the soil, nowadays the farmers are using the seed drills, right? Later, seed crisis. Seed crisis in the sense of actually farmers require seeds for sowing in the crop production, right? So sometimes the farmers are usually they are purchasing the seeds from the market, and the market people, how they are getting the seeds, usually the National Seed Development Corporation of India, they are selling the seeds, and they are selling the seeds, it seems, they are by the market they are getting the seeds, right? So sometimes when the farmers purchase the seeds from the market or from the NSDCI, the seeds may not grown properly. Only 50% seeds are growing, the 50% seeds may not grown, and sometimes the 100% seeds also not grown properly, right? In such cases, the farmers are suffering a lot, and they may be losing many things, it seems, that financially also, right? So that's what seed crisis. See this one, removing seedlings after sowing the seeds. After sowing the seeds, the seeds can be grown turned into plant, and when the plants are growing into certain height, like generally called as sapling. Sapling in the sense of the plant which containing the 5 to 7 leaves, it is called generally saplings. The saplings, when the plants are growing, when the seeds are growing into a sapling, again they need to be removed and replanted. When this was happened, when the seeds are manually manually sown. When the seeds are manually sown, again they have to be replanted. They need to be uprooted and replanted again, right? So this is what removing the seedlings after sowing the seeds. Then when they are growing into the certain height with the 5 and 7 leaves, they can be uprooted. Again they bunched into 20-30 plants. Again they replanted in an order. That is called seed removal of seedlings and replanting. But nowadays the farmers are using a kind of an instruments to planting these seedlings, right? So whenever they are using the seed drills to be sowing the seeds in a particular order, they need not again replanted the plants. It is the time saving process also, right? Later, the applying manure in the sense of the fertilizers. What are the nutrients required for the plant growth are called manure, right? The nutrients required by the plants are generally two types are there. Those are macronutrients and micronutrients. Macro and micronutrients. Macronutrients in the sense of the nutrients which are required by the plant growth in the large quantity are called macronutrients. The majority of the plants macronutrients are the nitrogen, phosphorus and potash. And micronutrients in the sense of the plant which consider or using the nutrients in the very less quantity are called micronutrients, and usually the zinc, manganese, boron, copper, calcium, ferrum. These are some examples of the micronutrients used by the plants in the very small quantity, or also called as the micronutrients, right? Later, the using pesticides. After the farmers are using the nutrients, the plants are growing to the certain height, and they can be giving a good production. And later, the another challenge of the farmers is to control the pest. Using pesticides. We know that using pesticides. Pest is nothing but the diseases caused to the plants. So not only a particular diseases, the plants are affected by the bacteria, the virus, the fungus, and many insects also attacking the plants. So that is the biggest challenge to the farmers to protect the crop from the disease causing pathogens, right? So that the farmers are using pesticides. They are using against the pest, right? Any kind of a pest which are damaging the crop, the farmers are usually using the pesticides to control the pest, right? Here it is a natural manure. Why natural manure, and why farmers are converted from the chemical fertilizers to the natural fertilizers? So by using the chemical fertilizers and chemical pesticides, immediately they can be controlling the disease causing pathogens, but it will not work later. Why? Because the disease causing pathogens are increasing their ability or increasing their resistance against the pesticides, so that when the farmers using same pesticides in the next time, it may not be work properly or effectively. Why? Because the disease causing pathogens are resistant to the particular pesticide. So that instead of using the chemical pesticides and chemical fertilizers, the farmers nowadays using the natural manure and natural fertilizers, right? And here it is the natural manure. Chemical fertilizers are usually prepared in the industries or maybe in the laboratory, and natural manures are prepared in the open places, and chemical fertilizers are prepared by using some chemical substances, and natural manures are used by the naturally occurring substances like plant and animal waste, right? And by using the chemical fertilizers, immediately farmers are getting a good production, no doubt about it, but it will be showing the bad impact in the long lasting, right? For when the farmers are using the chemical fertilizers or pesticides, 20 to 30 years they are getting the good production, but after 20 to 30 years the land become barren. It is not useful for agricultural practices. So that nowadays the majority of the farmers are converted their using of fertilizers and pesticides from artificial to the or chemical to the natural, right? So natural manures are useful nowadays. By using the natural fertilizers and natural manures, they are getting the good production, and they never harm to the environment, and also they are increasing the soil health also, right? Latter and most important task in agricultural practices is irrigation, right? Irrigation in the supply, in the sense of supplying of water. Irrigation in the sense supplying of water, right? Without water no crop can be grown, so that irrigation also plays a very important role in the agricultural practices. Here it is, the irrigation methods are not so same in all the places. Depends on the water availability, the irrigation methods and techniques are different. See this one, the basin irrigation. Basin irrigation in the sense of where the water is more available, sufficient water is available in the areas, the complete agricultural area can be filled with water. That's called basin irrigation. Later, furrow irrigation. Furrow irrigation in the sense of they can make some gaps or channels between the rows of the plants. Between the rows of the plants, the water can be supplied in the channels. That's called the furrow irrigation, right? Later, drip irrigation and sprinkler irrigation. Usually, in majority parts of India or maybe throughout the world, some areas are having some scarcity of water. Scarcity of water means water is not sufficiently. In such areas, the farmers are able to grow the crops even though the water is not available, right? So how to grow the crops by using the less water? How to grow the crops even though the water is very less? So some technologies, some techniques they are using to grow the crops even though the water is very less. That's nothing but drip irrigation and sprinkler irrigation. In the drip irrigation, they are using some pipes. They are using some pipes, and pipes are connected with the parallel, or maybe here it is, for example, this is the large pipe they are using in the agricultural practices of the drip irrigation, and this large pipe containing the small pipes in the parallel. Right? And when water is traveled through this pipe, the water can be divided and they can be distributed through the small pipes, and these small pipes are having openings, and through these openings the water can be supplied drop by drop to the particularly where the plant is there, right? Where the plant is planted, there exactly to the root system of the plant the water can be supplied drop by drop, so that by using the drip irrigation method, we can conserve the water and we can reduce the wastage of water, and with less water only we can able to grow the crops like paddy also. So the majority of the farmers nowadays looking forward for using the drip irrigation. By using the drip irrigation method, 70% of the water we can save, but unfortunately around the world 2 to 3% of the farmers only using this drip irrigation technique, and I don't know the reason behind it. Later, the sprinkler irrigation. Sprinklers are using, this is also be the another technique using in the agricultural practices where water is less available, right? The sprinklers, they can sprinkle the water, sprinkling the water, and they can be wet the around area with a less quantity of water. Later, the most important thing is the weeding. It is also be one of the important tasks in agricultural practices for getting a good production. And there is a weeding. What is weeding? Weeding in the sense of removal of weed plants. Removal of weed plants. Weeds. Actually, what are weeds? Weeds are nothing but unwanted, undesirable plants which are growing along with the crop plants. Right? So undesirable or unwanted plants, whenever they are growing with the crop plants, they may causing a lot of damage to the farmers. How? Because weed plants are growing faster than the crop plants, and they are occupying the more space. Whenever they are occupying more space, the regular crop plants and the weed plants are compete with each other for space, water and nutrients and sunlight also. Whenever the weed plants are compete with the regular crop plants, weed plants are growing faster than the crop plants, and these are occupying more space, these are consuming more water and nutrients. Whenever these weed plants are growing faster than the regular, automatically they are affecting the regular crop production, and finally farmers are getting the less production in the farm. So that the weeding is also one of the most important tasks in the agricultural practices. And the farmers, whenever they are identifying the weed plants, immediately they can remove the weed plants by the two methods. Generally, when the weed plants are in the less number, immediately the farmers can uproot the plants and pluck the plants and throwing away from the agricultural area. This is the very simplest process and the foremost process when the weed plants are very less in number. But the weed plants are more in number, even though the farmer are unable to uproot these plants. What they will do, they are using some kinds of weedicides. Weedicides are nothing but the chemical substances using against the weed plants to reduce. For example, 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid, 2,4-D. General short form of the 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid is 2,4-D. It is using against the dicot weeds, right? And these are the generally some kinds of weed plants when the farmers are using to control the weeds. Later, harvesting. Whenever the farmer has done all these things, and finally when the crops is growing properly, the farmers can do the harvesting. Harvesting in the sense of cutting the plants after they are completely grown, right? So this after the harvesting, the farmers are doing the two important practices, nothing but the threshing and winnowing. Threshing and winnowing. Threshing in the sense of separation of grains from the plant. Separation of grains from the plant are called threshing. Usually in the olden methods, the farmers are holding a bunch of plants, they are beating on the hard surfaces. Whenever they are beating on hard surfaces, usually the grains are separated from the plant. But nowadays, some machineries are available to be separating the grains from the plant without any human power. Later, the winnowing. Winnowing in the sense of separation of the good grains from the husk. Right? From when you observe that some seeds are there, there is a seed coat, but inside the seed coat we cannot find any seed. Right? Such kind of things need to be separated from the good seeds, good grains. So usually in the winnowing method in the olden days, one person is standing in the higher and also they are leaving all these seeds from seeds, and whenever the seeds are falling down, the good ones are falling nearby and the light weighted grains are taken away by the wind, and this is also been nowadays using by the machinery. Later, storage of grains. Storage of grains. Okay, storage of grains in the sense of after the separation of the good seeds by winnowing method, they need to be stored properly. To store properly, they need to follow some methods. Why they need to be stored? Why? Because all the grains which they are growing, they cannot be utilizing, they cannot be consuming immediately within 1 or 2 days. So that whenever they are storing the food materials, they can be used those food materials in the further days. So that they have to store the grains in the proper method. What the steps they need to follow to store the grains? Generally, after winnowing, the farmers are leaving the grains in front of the godowns in the open area under the sunlight. So whenever they spread under the sunlight, because of sunlight, the water or moisture present in the food grains can be evaporated. Whenever there is no moisture in the food grains, that can be preserved for long-term purpose. Otherwise, when there is a moisture in the grains, it is a good environment for the pathogens like a fungus to be attack and damage the grains. So that the farmer have to dry these grains before they are going to be storing. This is generally called as a broadcasting. Okay, right. And after that, storing the grains, and they can be packed according to the quantity like a 50 or 100 cases, and automatically they can pack by using the gunny bags, and they can be stored in the godowns, and they can send to the market, it seems, and whenever they are getting a good price, they can able to sell in the market. This is regarding the agricultural practices. Nearly 11 practices are there. These are all the things which are done by the farmers to getting the good production, and from the preparing the soil to the till storage.